The transport shuttle descended towards Sentinel-7, the massive military training station that hung in the darkness of space like a small moon. Inside the passenger bay, 8 humans sat in their seats and watched the structure grow larger through the viewports. Jake Morrison leaned forward to get a better look at the rotating sections and docking bays that covered the station's surface. "That's bigger than I expected," Danny Cruz said from across the aisle. He had been to orbital stations before, but nothing quite like this one. Sentinel-7 was the Galactic Coalition's premier combat training facility, where the best soldiers from dozens of species learned to fight together. Lauren Hayes checked her datapad one more time, reviewing the information packet they had received weeks ago. Says here we're the first human group they've accepted into the program. We're supposed to be in training for 6 months with about 40 other recruits from different worlds. "No pressure then," Kyle Richardson said with a slight grin. He was the youngest of the group at 23, fresh out of Earth's military academy with top marks in tactical assessment. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and the humans gathered their gear. They had been told to pack light since most equipment would be provided. Amy Patterson slung her bag over her shoulder and followed the others toward the airlock. She had served 3 years in Earth's Marine Corps before applying to the Coalition program, and she was curious to see how alien military training compared to what she already knew. The docking bay was enormous. Humans were not the only new arrivals that day. A group of tall, 4-armed beings with gray skin and ridge-covered heads stood near one gate. Another cluster of shorter, heavily armored creatures with thick shells waited by a different entrance. A third group looked almost like walking crystals, their bodies reflecting the station's lights in rainbow patterns. "Welcome to Sentinel-7, a voice said in perfect English, though the translator device made it sound slightly mechanical. The speaker was one of the 4-armed beings, taller than any human, and wearing what appeared to be an instructor's uniform. "I am Zekthar. I will be your primary combat instructor for the duration of your training." The 8 humans lined up and introduced themselves one by one. After Jake and Lauren came Megan Torres, a specialist in close-quarters combat. Eric Walsh had background in engineering and demolitions. Beth Martinez was their communications expert. And the last member was a quiet tactical planner named Connor Hayes. Zekthar looked them over with eyes that seemed to see too much. "You are smaller than I anticipated," he said bluntly. "Earth is listed as a Category 12 world in our database. I expected more physical mass." "We make up for it in other ways, sir," Jake replied politely. The instructor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We shall see. Follow me. I will show you to your quarters, and then we begin orientation." The barracks were designed to accommodate multiple species, with adjustable furniture and environmental controls. The humans were assigned a wing with 7 other species groups. Over the next few hours, they met their fellow trainees. The 4-armed beings were called Vrel-Nai, and they came from a world with lower gravity than Earth. The armored creatures were Korthax, evolved on a planet where they needed thick shells to survive the harsh storms. The crystal-like beings were Dilmari, and they communicated partly through light patterns, in addition to speech. That first week passed in a blur of classes and simulations. Zekthar taught them coalition protocols, weapons systems, and tactical theory. The humans absorbed the information quickly enough, but they did not stand out as exceptional. In the virtual combat simulations, they performed at about average level compared to the other species. Some of the alien trainees began to whisper that perhaps Earth was not as dangerous as its classification suggested. Jake noticed the looks but said nothing. Lauren caught a few dismissive comments from a Vrel-Nai trainee named Kexvel, who seemed to think humans were too soft for real combat. Danny overheard 2 Korthax discussing whether humans would even survive the advanced training modules. "Should we show them what we can do?" Kyle asked one evening in the barracks. "We're not here to show off," Amy said firmly. "We're here to learn and represent Earth properly. Let our work speak for itself." Beth nodded in agreement. "Besides, I'd rather they underestimate us than expect too much and be disappointed." The training continued. They learned to operate coalition energy weapons, which were quite different from the projectile firearms common on Earth. They practiced formation movements, battlefield communication protocols, and emergency medical procedures. The humans asked a lot of questions, especially about safety systems and backup procedures. "Your species seems very concerned with fail-safes." Zekthar observed during a weapons briefing. "This is the third time you have asked about medical facilities. Just want to know what resources are available, sir," Eric explained. "Back home, we always scout the medical evac routes before a training exercise." The instructor's expression was unreadable. An interesting habit. On the 10th day, Zekthar gathered all the trainees in the main briefing hall. The room could hold 200 beings comfortably, and the current class of 48 filled less than a quarter of the space. Holographic displays showed various combat scenarios, while the instructor stood at the front. "You have completed basic orientation," Zekthar announced. "Now we move to applied skills assessment. The first major test will be the live reflex assessment." Under 5 wit. A murmur went through the alien trainees. The humans looked at each other but remained quiet. "This assessment uses reduced power energy weapons in a controlled environment," the instructor continued. "The weapons are set to training mode, but they are still dangerous. You can be injured. In rare cases, trainees have died when they failed to react properly. This is not a simulation. This is real combat training." Several of the Dilmari began to glow more brightly, which Jake had learned indicated stress or excitement in their species. The Korthax shifted their weight, and some of the Vrelnai flexed all 4 arms in what seemed like a nervous habit. "You will have 3 days to prepare," Zekthar said. "Use this time wisely. Study the arena layout. Practice your evasion techniques. Ensure your physical condition is optimal. Medical teams will be standing by, but understand that injuries sustained in this assessment are considered part of your training record." After the briefing ended, the alien trainees dispersed quickly, many of them heading to the training simulators to practice. The humans walked back to their barracks at a normal pace. "Live fire with reduced power," Connor mused. "Sounds like they're using something similar to training lasers." "Burns instead of holes," Megan agreed. "Painful but not usually lethal, unless you really mess up." "We should probably review the arena specs," Lauren suggested. "See what kind of cover is available and map out the firing angles." They spent that evening going over the technical documents, discussing tactics in the same calm way they might plan a regular training exercise. In the common area outside their quarters, they could hear other species conducting what sounded like meditation sessions or physical conditioning routines. The next 2 days followed a similar pattern. While alien trainees went through elaborate preparation rituals, the humans did basic conditioning work, reviewed the course layout, and made sure their gear was in good order. They seemed relaxed and unconcerned, which only reinforced the impression that they did not fully understand the danger they were about to face. On the morning of the assessment, Zekthar watched the humans arrive at the preparation area. They were doing simple stretches and checking their equipment with the same casual attitude they brought to everything else. It bothered him in a way he could not quite explain. Either they were foolish, or they knew something he did not. He would have his answer soon enough. The preparation chamber buzzed with activity as the various species went through their pre-assessment routines. Zekthar stood on an observation platform, watching through the transparent barrier that separated him from the trainees below. His 4 eyes tracked the different groups with the practiced attention of someone who had overseen hundreds of these assessments. The Vrelnai team had formed a circle and were performing synchronized breathing exercises. Their chest plates rose and fell in perfect rhythm as they centered their minds for the challenge ahead. Nearby, 3 Korthax warriors were receiving stimulant injections from their medical specialist. The chemicals would sharpen their already impressive reaction times and help their bodies respond faster to threats. In the corner, the Dilmari had dimmed their natural luminescence to almost nothing and sat in complete silence. It was a form of meditation unique to their species, a way of clearing their sensory perception to achieve maximum awareness. They would emerge from this state with reflexes operating at peak efficiency. Then there were the humans. Jake and Kyle were having what appeared to be a casual conversation about Earth sports. Lauren was checking her bootlaces for the 3rd time. Not out of nervousness but simple habit. Danny had his head tilted back against the wall with his eyes closed. Though Zekthar's instruments showed he was not asleep or meditating, he was simply resting. Amy and Megan were doing basic stretching exercises, the kind used for general warm-up rather than combat preparation. Eric had pulled out a small datapad and seemed to be reading something completely unrelated to the assessment. Beth was braiding her hair to keep it out of her face. Zekthar felt a flicker of concern. Either the humans truly did not understand the danger, or their preparation methods were so different from other species that he could not recognize them. He made a note to speak with them after the assessment, assuming they survived it without serious injury. "First team to the arena," his assistant instructor announced. "Vrelnai squad, you are cleared to enter." The 4 Vrelnai moved with sharp precision toward the entrance. The arena itself was a complex space roughly 60 meters across, filled with barriers, obstacles, and elevated positions. Automated turrets were mounted at various points throughout the area, each one loaded with training mode energy weapons. The weapons were set to roughly 40% of combat power, enough to cause severe burns and temporary incapacitation, but usually not enough to kill. Usually, the Vrelnai spread out to their starting positions. A countdown appeared on the display screens. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The turrets activated. Energy bolts filled the air immediately, and the Vrelnai moved. They were fast, using all 4 arms to vault over obstacles and pull themselves into cover. Their breathing exercises had prepared them well. They dodged and weaved through the firing patterns, working together to advance through the arena. One took a glancing hit to the shoulder and hissed in pain but kept moving. 8 minutes later, they completed the course. All 4 were breathing hard, showing elevated stress markers on the biomonitors. 2 had minor burns, but they had passed. The Korthax went next. They relied more on their natural armor than on agility, absorbing some hits that would have incapacitated other species. Their stimulant-enhanced reflexes served them well in predicting the firing patterns. They finished in 7 minutes with 3 of their team showing moderate injuries. The Dilmari took a different approach entirely. Their enhanced senses allowed them to detect the turrets charging up before they fired. They moved like water, flowing through the arena with movements that seemed almost prescient. They completed the course in 6 minutes with only superficial damage. "Human team," the assistant called. "You are cleared to enter the arena." The 8 humans stood and walked toward the entrance. There was no ceremony to their movement, no last-minute rituals or prayers. Jake stretched his neck to one side, producing an audible crack. Lauren yawned and covered her mouth with her hand. They looked like people heading to a routine training session, rather than a potentially lethal assessment. Zekthar leaned forward on the observation platform. Something about their body language nagged at him, but he could not identify what it was. The humans took their positions. The countdown began. The turrets opened fire. What Zekthar saw in the next 3 minutes would change his entire understanding of the species from Earth. The humans moved, but not with the explosive speed of the Vrelnai or the calculated precision of the Dilmari. They moved with a kind of lazy efficiency that should not have worked but somehow did. Jake sidestepped a bolt of energy without even looking directly at the turret that fired it, as if he had known it was coming. Lauren slid into cover behind a barrier with minimal effort, then leaned out to observe the next firing sequence. Kyle ducked under a shot while simultaneously checking the power cell on his equipment belt. The motion was smooth and unhurried. Danny took 3 quick steps to his left, avoided 2 separate turret attacks, and then actually yawned. Zekthar checked the biomonitors. The humans' heart rates were barely elevated. Their stress hormone levels were normal. Their breathing was calm and steady. It made no sense. They were in an environment with live weapons actively trying to hit them, and their bodies were responding as if they were taking an evening walk. Amy moved from one position to another with her head on a swivel, scanning the environment in a pattern that Zekthar recognized as a combat awareness technique. But there was no tension in her movements, no sign of fear or even heightened alertness. She looked bored. Megan dodged a burst of fire and used the moment to adjust her sleeve, which had ridden up slightly on her arm. Eric checked his datapad again, apparently finishing whatever he had been reading in the preparation area before moving to a new position. Beth hummed something under her breath, a sound that the audio pickups barely registered. The other instructors and observers on the platform began to notice. Murmurs spread through the group. This was not normal. This was not how any species reacted to live fire training. Zekthar pulled up the comparative data. The Vrelnai had completed the course with an average heart rate increase of 68%. The Korthax had shown 72%. The Dilmari, with their superior sensory abilities and meditation training, still showed a 43% increase. The humans were showing an 8% increase. 8%. Less than some species showed during basic physical exercise. Something is wrong, Zekthar's assistant said. Should we check the monitoring equipment? But Zekthar was watching Jake Morrison casually lean against a barrier while energy bolts impacted the other side. The human looked like he was waiting for a delayed shuttle rather than avoiding weapons fire. And his biosigns were completely consistent with that level of concern. That was when Zekthar made his decision. Stop the exercise, he ordered. The assistant looked at him in surprise. Sir? They have not completed the course. Stop it now. The turrets powered down. The sudden silence in the arena was startling. The 8 humans looked around in confusion. Clearly unsure why the assessment had been halted, they gathered in a loose group near the center of the arena, talking quietly among themselves. Zekthar activated his communicator. Remain in the arena. I am coming down. He descended from the observation platform quickly, his forearms swinging with agitation. The door to the arena slid open, and he strode inside, moving directly toward the clustered humans. They turned to face him, their expressions showing mild concern but nothing approaching fear or worry. Instructor Zekthar, Jake said politely. Is there a problem with the course? We can restart if there was a malfunction. The question was sincere. They genuinely thought there had been a technical issue. Zekthar's training had covered dozens of species across hundreds of worlds. He had seen soldiers face death with courage, fear, determination, and resignation. He had never seen anyone face danger with such complete and utter lack of concern. Why are you all so calm? He demanded, his voice carrying across the arena. This is live fire. Weapons that can hurt you. Weapons that can kill you. Every other species that has gone through this assessment today showed appropriate stress responses. But you 8 are walking through it like it is a mild inconvenience. Your heart rates barely changed. You were yawning. The humans exchanged glances. Lauren raised her hand slightly, as if asking permission to speak. Sir, we are taking this seriously. Was our performance inadequate in some way? Your performance was perfect, Zekthar said. And he heard the frustration in his own voice. That is the problem. You should not be this calm. Why are you this calm? Danny Cruz spoke up. Instructor, I'm not sure I understand the question. You said this was training with reduced power weapons, right? We're just doing what we always do in training scenarios. This is not a normal training scenario, Zekthar insisted. This is dangerous. People have died in this assessment, Amy nodded. We understand that, sir. But the danger level seems pretty manageable. The turrets have predictable firing patterns, the cover is adequate, and the weapons are set below lethal threshold for most hits. It's less dangerous than a lot of what we did back on Earth. Zekthar stared at her. Then he looked at each of the other humans in turn. They all wore similar expressions, confused but patient, as if trying to understand what had upset their instructor. Less dangerous, he repeated slowly. Well, yes sir, Kyle said. Back home we train with actual bullets. Those don't have a reduced power setting. The arena was very quiet. Somewhere in the observation area, another instructor had pulled up Earth's planetary classification file. Zekthar could see it on his personal display. The words glowing softly in the dim light. Class 12, Death World. He had read those words before but had not truly considered what they meant. Zekthar stood in the center of the arena, his forearms hanging at his sides as he processed what Kyle had just said. Actual bullets, not reduced power. Not training mode, actual projectiles designed to kill. Explain, he said finally. Explain your training on Earth. The humans looked at each other again with that same uncertain expression, as if trying to figure out where to start with something they considered basic knowledge. Jake spoke first. Well, sir, Human military training involves live fire exercises pretty regularly. We use real ammunition in controlled environments to prepare soldiers for actual combat conditions. It's been standard practice for a long time. And people die in this training? Zekthar asked. Sometimes, Lauren admitted. Not often, because we have safety protocols and experienced instructors. But yes, training accidents happen. It's considered an acceptable risk, because soldiers need to know how to function under real fire. Zekthar pulled up a holographic display from his wrist device, accessing Earth's military training statistics. The numbers that appeared made him go very still. Annual training fatalities in the hundreds, injury rates in the thousands, and humans considered this normal and acceptable. Your species sends young soldiers into situations where death is a known possibility, just for training? He asked slowly. Sir, with respect, that's what you're doing right now, Danny pointed out, gesturing at the arena around them. You said people have died in this assessment before. Yes, but rarely. Perhaps one fatality in every 1,000 assessments. And those are usually from species who panic or make critical errors. This is an exceptional test. Not routine training. Beth stepped forward. Instructor Zekthar, I think there might be a misunderstanding here. What you're describing as exceptional is pretty close to what we'd call basic training. The really dangerous stuff comes later. Later? Zekthar repeated. There are training exercises more dangerous than this? Special Forces training has a mortality rate of about 3%, Eric said matter-of-factly. That's just from the training itself. Not including people who wash out due to injury. They do things like underwater demolition training, high-altitude parachute insertions, and combat exercises with live explosives. The other alien trainees had started gathering at the arena entrance, drawn by the unusual sight of the instructor halting an assessment midway. Now they listened in growing disbelief as the humans described their world's military preparation. Why? A Dilmari named Shenra asked, her crystalline form pulsing with confused colors. Why would you risk so many lives just to train soldiers? Megan turned to face her. Because Earth is dangerous. Our world doesn't give us a choice about being ready for threats. If you're not prepared, you die. So we train hard to make sure our people survive when it matters. All worlds have dangers. Kexvel the Vrelnai said dismissively. That does not require such extreme measures. Does your world have apex predators that actively hunt people? Amy asked. The Vrelnai hesitated. We have some carnivorous animals, yes. How many species of apex predator? Perhaps 3 or 4 on our entire planet. Amy nodded. Earth has over 30 species of large predators that can and will kill humans. That's not counting the smaller venomous creatures, the parasites, or the diseases. And those are just the biological threats. Zekthar was pulling up more data now, his curiosity overriding his disbelief. Earth's environmental profile filled his display. Temperature ranges that would kill most species within hours. Weather patterns that generated windstorms capable of destroying structures. Seismic activity that could level cities without warning. A massive moon that pulled at the planet's water, creating tidal forces and violent ocean currents. Your species evolved in this environment? He asked. Yes, sir, Jake confirmed. Humans developed on Earth. We adapted to it over millions of years. And you consider this normal? It was not really a question, but Connor answered anyway. It's the only planet we knew for most of our history, so yes. Normal is relative. Instructor. You grow up learning what's dangerous and how to avoid it, or how to fight it if you can't avoid it. A Korthax named Drevkor spoke up from the entrance. His armored body shifted as he processed this information. We Korthax pride ourselves on our resilience. Our world has terrible storms that last for weeks. But we evolved shells to protect us. You humans have no natural armor, no shells, no thick hide. How did you survive? We learned to make tools, Lauren said simply. We couldn't grow claws, so we made knives. We couldn't grow thick skin, so we made clothes and shelters. We couldn't run fast enough to escape predators, so we made weapons to fight them at range. And we learned to work together because alone, a human is pretty vulnerable. Zekthar was beginning to understand something that disturbed him deeply. Your calmness in this assessment is not bravery or training. It is baseline. This level of danger does not trigger your fear response, because it is less than what you deal with regularly. I wouldn't say we deal with it regularly, Beth said. Most people on Earth live safe lives now, but the instincts are still there. Our bodies and brains evolved to handle constant threats, so something like this, she gestured at the arena, doesn't register as especially dangerous. Show me, Zekthar said abruptly. Show me what you consider dangerous on your world. Jake pulled out his personal datapad and brought up some images. The first was a large brown creature with huge teeth and claws. This is a grizzly bear. They weigh about 600 kilograms and can run faster than a human. We teach children who live in certain areas how to react if they encounter one. The basic advice is to make yourself look big and back away slowly. If it attacks, you fight for your life, because you're probably going to die anyway. Several of the alien trainees made sounds of distress. The next image showed a long, scaled creature with massive jaws. Saltwater crocodile, Lauren explained. Lives in water, but can move on land. Ambush predator. They're patient and smart. People die every year because they don't respect the danger. And this one, Danny added, showing an image of a relatively small spotted cat, is a leopard, only about 70 kilograms, but it can drag prey twice its weight up a tree. There are areas where humans and leopards share territory. You learn to be careful. These creatures still exist on your world? Shenra asked. You have not eliminated them? Why would we eliminate them? Amy looked genuinely confused by the question. They're part of Earth's ecosystem. We're not going to wipe out entire species just because they're dangerous. We learn to coexist. Megan pulled up a different set of images. Of course. The large predators aren't the only problem. See these? These are some of Earth's venomous creatures. She showed pictures of snakes, spiders, jellyfish, and small, colorful frogs. A bite or sting from any of these can kill you. Some of them are tiny. Some of them look harmless. You have to learn what to watch out for. How do your children survive? Kexvel demanded. If your world is so dangerous, how does anyone reach adulthood? We teach them, Eric said. From a very young age, we teach kids what's dangerous and how to stay safe. Don't touch unknown plants. Don't swim in certain waters. Don't approach wild animals. Check your shoes before putting them on in case something venomous crawled inside. Basic survival knowledge. Zekthar felt something shift in his understanding. He had reviewed Earth's classification as a Class 12 death world. But the designation had seemed abstract. Now he was beginning to grasp what it actually meant to evolve on such a planet. You mentioned weather before, he said. Explain your planet's weather patterns. Connor took this one. Earth has several climate zones with different characteristics. Some areas get hurricanes, which are massive rotating storms with winds over 200 kilometers per hour. They can destroy entire coastal communities. Other areas get tornadoes, smaller but more intense windstorms that can level buildings. We have monsoons, blizzards, heat waves, and droughts. Different regions face different threats, and you cannot simply move away from these threats. Most of Earth's surface has some kind of environmental hazard, Connor explained. If you're not dealing with storms, you might be dealing with earthquakes or volcanic activity or extreme temperatures. There's really no completely safe zone. You just learn to prepare for whatever threats are most common in your area. Beth added, plus, humans are social creatures. We live in communities, in cities. We don't abandon places just because they're dangerous. We build better structures, develop warning systems, and help each other survive. Zekthar was reading through Earth's geological data now. The planet's crust was divided into massive plates that ground against each other, causing frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The atmosphere was thick with oxygen, making fires burn hot and fast. The gravity was higher than most inhabited worlds. The rotation created strong weather systems. The orbital mechanics created seasonal variations that many species would find intolerable. Your planet is actively trying to kill you, he said finally. Jake shrugged. I guess that's one way to look at it. We just think of it as home. You adapt to what you grow up with. And your military training reflects this adaptation, Zekthar continued, the pieces falling into place in his mind. You train with live weapons because your world has live threats. You accept casualties in training because your environment has always had casualties. You remain calm under fire because fear without action would have killed your ancestors. That's pretty accurate, sir, Lauren agreed. Zekthar looked around at the other alien trainees, seeing his own shock reflected in their expressions. Then he looked back at the 8 humans, who stood there waiting patiently for whatever came next, completely unaware that they had just shattered every assumption he had held about their species. I need to file a report with Coalition Command, he said quietly. In the meantime, you 8 will complete the assessment. But first, I want to see something. I want you to run the course again. But this time, I want you to treat it like you would treat actual combat on your world. Show me what humans do when they face real danger. The humans exchanged glances. Eric spoke carefully. Sir, if we do that, we might break some of the arena equipment. Then we will repair it, Zekthar said. Show me. The 8 humans spread out to their starting positions again. This time, there was a subtle difference in how they moved. Jake rolled his shoulders and stretched his neck. Lauren checked her gear with more attention to detail. The casual atmosphere from before had shifted into something harder to define. They looked focused now, but still not afraid. Zekthar returned to the observation platform where the other instructors and alien trainees had gathered. Every eye was on the arena below. The humans had claimed they could do more than what they had shown. Now they would have to prove it. Begin the assessment, Zekthar ordered. The countdown started. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The turrets activated. But this time the humans were already moving before the first shot fired. They did not wait to see where the weapons would aim. They assumed every position was hostile and acted accordingly. Jake went low and fast, using a rolling movement that brought him behind cover in less than a second. But he did not stay there. He popped up immediately, assessed the turret positions, and made a hand signal that the other humans seemed to understand instantly. Lauren and Kyle split left while Danny and Amy went right. They were flanking. The turrets tracked their movement and fired. But the humans were no longer where the targeting systems expected them to be. Megan used an obstacle as a springboard, launching herself into a higher position that gave her a clear view of the arena. She called out firing patterns in a calm, clear voice that somehow carried over the sound of energy weapons discharging. 3 covering the east quadrant, 2 on the west side at low angle. Center turret has wide coverage but slow rotation speed. Eric processed this information and moved accordingly, using the center turret's blind spot to advance straight through what should have been a kill zone. Beth stayed back, coordinating their positions and calling out when someone was about to be in another person's line of movement. But what struck Zekthar most was that they were not just avoiding fire anymore. They were controlling it. Jake deliberately exposed himself for half a second, drawing fire from 2 turrets. The moment the weapons committed to targeting him, he dropped behind cover, and Lauren exploited the opening to advance 10 meters. It was a basic suppression tactic, but executed with such smooth precision that it looked choreographed. Danny found a position where 3 turrets had overlapping firing solutions, creating a triangular kill zone that should have been impossible to cross. He studied it for perhaps 2 seconds, then sprinted through at an angle that kept all 3 weapons from getting a clear shot. His timing was perfect. His path was optimal. He made it look easy. They are predicting the firing sequences, one of the Dilmari observers said in an awed voice. But they do not have enhanced senses like we do. How can they predict without seeing the energy build up? They are reading the machine logic, another instructor answered. Watching the turret movements, the rotation patterns, the recharge cycles. They are treating the weapons as if they have intent, as if they are living opponents. Amy reached a turret that was partially exposed on one side. Instead of simply avoiding it, she examined the mounting bracket, found a weak point, and kicked it hard. The turret tilted 15 degrees off its base, ruining its firing solution for that entire section of the arena. She grinned and moved on. Kyle and Connor worked together to create what looked like a pincer movement, approaching a cluster of 3 turrets from different angles. The weapons tried to track both targets but could not cover both approaches effectively. The humans exploited the confusion, moving through gaps in the coverage that appeared and disappeared in fractions of a second. Megan spotted a pattern that the others had missed. One turret was positioned to cover a particular corridor, but its firing arc was limited by the arena's structure. She signaled to Beth, who relayed the information to Jake. Within seconds, they had rerouted their entire approach to exploit that single weakness. "How long have they been training together?" Zekthar asked, checking the human files. According to their records, they met for the first time when they arrived at this station 12 days ago. His assistant replied, "That should not have been possible." The level of coordination they were displaying required months of practice, shared combat experience, and deep trust in each other's abilities. Yet these 8 had been strangers less than 2 weeks ago. The humans moved through the arena like water finding paths through stone. They communicated with minimal words, using hand signals and body language that seemed to convey complex tactical information instantly. When one person advanced, the others adjusted their positions automatically to provide cover. When someone identified a threat, the entire group responded as a unit. They finished the course in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. They had not been hit once. The arena went silent as the turrets powered down. The 8 humans gathered in the center, checking each other for injuries out of habit even though none of them had taken damage. They were breathing harder than before, but their biosigns still showed nothing approaching panic or extreme stress. Zekthar descended to the arena floor again, but this time he was not angry or confused. He was deeply thoughtful. The other alien trainees followed him, forming a loose circle around the humans. "That was remarkable," Zekthar said simply. "I have overseen this assessment for 9 years. I have never seen anyone complete it without taking at least 1 hit, and I have certainly never seen anyone finish in under 5 minutes. "Thank you, sir," Jake said. "We did our best. Your coordination was exceptional. You moved like a unit that has fought together for years, not days." Lauren nodded. "We're all trained in similar doctrines, sir. Human military forces use standardized tactical communication across different units. It makes it easier to work with people you've just met." Drevkor the Korthax stepped forward, his armored form clicking softly as he moved. "You treated the turrets like living enemies. You manipulated their behavior, forced them to make choices. How did you know they would respond the way you predicted?" "Everything has patterns," Connor explained. "Living or machine. If something has rules governing its behavior, you can predict what it will do. The turrets have to follow their programming. We just figured out what that programming was and worked around it." Shenra's crystalline body pulsed with soft blue light. "When Amy damaged that turret mounting, she could have been hurt. If she miscalculated the angle or force, why take that risk?" Amy shrugged. "It wasn't that risky. I could see the bracket was designed for this station's standard gravity, which is lower than Earth's. I'm stronger here than I would be at home, so I knew I could deliver enough force, and eliminating that turret opened up a safer route for everyone else." "You calculated all of that in the moment?" Another Vrelnai asked skeptically. "It's not really calculation," Amy replied. "More like instinct informed by experience. You see a problem. You assess your options. You act. Overthinking gets you killed." Zekthar pulled up the video recording of their second run through the course. He projected it on a holographic display so everyone could see. "I want to show you all something. Watch their movements in the first 30 seconds. The recording played. The alien trainees watched as the humans scattered, moved, and regrouped with fluid efficiency. "Notice they are never surprised by the weapon's fire," Zekthar said. "Every human is constantly scanning their environment. They are not waiting for threats to appear. They are expecting threats and looking for them actively. This is not something you can train in a few days or even a few months. This is how their minds work naturally." He paused the recording on a frame showing Jake making a hand signal. They also communicate with economy and precision. No wasted words, no hesitation. Each signal conveys specific information that the others understand immediately. This suggests a shared cultural framework for combat that goes deeper than military training. Kexvel, who had been quiet since the humans described Earth's predators, finally spoke. Where does this framework come from? If you only met days ago, who taught you to work together like this? The humans looked at each other. And Beth laughed softly. We learned it as children. Mostly. Human kids play combat games from a very young age. Tag, hide and seek, capture the flag. We grow up practicing how to chase, evade, work in teams, and outthink opponents. Games? Shenra's lights flickered with confusion. You practice combat as recreation? Well, simulated combat, Danny clarified. Most human children never see real violence. But we play games that teach the same skills: strategy, coordination, reading body language, predicting opponent behavior. It's fun, Eric added. And as we get older, many humans participate in competitive sports. Team sports teach cooperation and tactics. Individual sports teach discipline and pushing your limits. Even if you never join the military, you grow up learning how to compete and how to handle physical challenges. On Earth, Megan said, entertainment often involves watching or participating in simulated conflict. Sports, games, movies, books. Humans are fascinated by stories of struggle and triumph. We practice these scenarios mentally and physically throughout our entire lives. Zekthar was beginning to see the full picture now. So when you arrive at military training, you are not starting from zero. You already have the foundational skills from your childhood and culture. The military just refines what is already there. Exactly, Lauren confirmed. They teach us real combat techniques, weapons proficiency, and actual tactical doctrine. But the basic mental framework, the ability to stay calm under pressure and work with others in dangerous situations, that's something most humans already have before they ever put on a uniform. A young Dilmari named Reshva spoke up hesitantly. Is Earth really so dangerous that you must prepare your children for combat? Not combat specifically, Jake said gently. But we prepare our children to face challenges, to solve problems under pressure, and to help each other. Those same skills happen to be useful in military contexts. On Earth, we have a saying: hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We teach our kids to be ready for whatever life throws at them. Zekthar could see the respect growing in the eyes of the alien trainees. The dismissive attitudes from the first week were gone, replaced by genuine curiosity and admiration. I think, Zekthar said slowly, that I owe you all an apology. I underestimated humans, because you did not show fear where other species would. I mistook your calm for ignorance. I was wrong. No apology necessary, sir, Jake said. You didn't know our background. Now you do. That's how understanding works. The training schedule changed 3 days after the live fire assessment. Zekthar called all 48 trainees together in the briefing hall and announced a new approach to their instruction. I have consulted with Coalition Command about our human trainees, he said, his forearms gesturing at the projection screen behind him. We agree that our current training protocols do not adequately challenge them. However, rather than simply increasing difficulty for one species, we are implementing mixed species training teams. You will learn from each other's strengths and compensate for each other's weaknesses. The new team assignments appeared on the screen. Each group contained representatives from 3 or 4 different species. Jake found himself paired with Kexvel, the Vrelnai, and a Korthax named Selva. Lauren joined a team with 2 Dilmari and a Vrelnai. The other humans were similarly distributed. This arrangement will continue for the remainder of your training, Zekthar explained. You will eat together, train together, and be evaluated together. Your success depends on your ability to work with beings who think and act differently than you do. This is what coalition service requires. The first mixed team training session was awkward. The different species had very different approaches to problem-solving and communication. Kexville wanted to plan every detail before taking action. Jake preferred to adapt on the fly. Selva relied heavily on his armor and direct confrontation. Their first tactical exercise ended in failure because none of them could agree on a strategy. "We need to talk about this," Jake said after the exercise ended. "We're all trained professionals, but we're working against each other instead of together." Kexville's forearms crossed in a gesture of frustration. "Your species acts without proper planning. You take unnecessary risks. Your species plans so much that opportunities pass you by," Jake countered. "And Selva, no offense, but you can't solve every problem by walking through it with armor on." The Korthax made a rumbling sound that might have been a laugh. "Perhaps not. But you humans are fragile. I worry that your tactics will get you killed. So we each have different concerns," Jake said. "Let's figure out how to use our differences instead of fighting them." "Kexville, you're good at analyzing situations and identifying risks. That's valuable. You can help us avoid stupid mistakes." "Selva, your armor and strength mean you can do things we can't. You can be the shield when we need one, and I can make quick decisions when we don't have time to plan every detail." Over the next week, the mixed teams began to gel. The humans taught their alien teammates about adaptive thinking and rapid response. The Vrelnai shared their analytical approach to tactical problems. The Korthax demonstrated the value of having someone who could absorb damage and hold critical positions. The Dilmari contributed their superior sensory awareness and ability to detect threats before they fully materialized. Megan worked with a Dilmari named Treshki on a close combat exercise. The Dilmari could sense Megan's movements through minute vibrations in the air, making her nearly impossible to surprise. In exchange, Megan taught Treshki about human grappling techniques and how to use an opponent's strength against them. "Your species is very physical," Treshki observed. "You touch each other frequently, even in training. For Dilmari, physical contact is unusual, outside of specific contexts. Humans are social creatures," Megan explained. "We communicate a lot through touch. A hand on the shoulder can mean encouragement, warning, or comfort, depending on context. In combat, we learn to read our teammates through physical cues as much as visual or verbal ones." Danny found himself working with two Vrelnai on an engineering challenge. They needed to breach a secured door within a time limit. The Vrelnai approached it as a pure technical problem, calculating the exact force needed and the optimal application points. "That'll work," Danny agreed. "But it'll take about 10 minutes to set up properly. We have 5 minutes total. Then the task is impossible," one of the Vrelnai said. "Or we improvise." Danny pulled out a standard-issue power cell. "These things aren't designed to be weapons. But if you overload one and place it against the door's locking mechanism, it'll cause a small explosion. Not enough to hurt anyone behind the door, but enough to fry the lock." The Vrelnai looked horrified. "That is not the intended purpose of that equipment. The safety specifications clearly state it should never be deliberately overloaded." "Yeah. Well, rules are guidelines when lives are at stake," Danny said. "Sometimes you work with what you have, instead of what you wish you had." They tried Danny's method. It worked. The Vrelnai added creative equipment repurposing to their skill sets, though they remained uncomfortable with the concept. Kyle bonded with a young Korthax named Brendok over their shared interest in weapons systems. Kyle explained the principles behind Earth's magnetic acceleration rifles, while Brendok demonstrated the elegant simplicity of Korthax hammer weapons that used the wielder's natural strength. "Humans use tools to overcome our physical limitations," Kyle said. "We're not as strong as Korthax, so we built weapons that multiply our force. We can't fly, so we built aircraft. We can't survive in space naturally, so we built ships and stations. This is why human technology develops so quickly," Brendok realized. "You must innovate because you lack natural advantages. My people have strong shells, so we did not focus on armor development until very late in our history. We had what we needed built into our bodies. Every species has different advantages," Kyle agreed. "The trick is figuring out how to combine them." Amy spent time with Shenra, teaching the Dilmari about human stress management techniques. The Dilmari were sensitive to emotional states, which made them excellent at reading social situations but also meant they could become overwhelmed in chaotic environments. When things get too intense, I focus on my breathing, Amy explained. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4. It gives my brain something simple to concentrate on, instead of spinning out. Shunra's lights pulsed thoughtfully. We Dilmari use light meditation, but that requires quiet and stillness. Your technique can be used anywhere, even in combat. Exactly. It's not about being calm necessarily. It's about being functional, even when you're not calm. The weeks passed, and the mixed teams grew stronger. The alien trainees started to understand why humans remained so composed under pressure. It was not that they felt no fear. They simply had practice functioning despite fear. They had been doing it their entire lives. Zekthar scheduled an advanced assessment 4 months into the training program. This time, the exercise combined multiple elements: live fire, time pressure, equipment failures, and unexpected complications. The mixed teams would face challenges that required everyone's unique abilities. Lauren's team entered the simulation zone first. It was designed to replicate a damaged ship with failing life support, hostile boarding forces, and limited resources. Her teammates included 2 Dilmari and a Vrelnai. The Dilmari immediately detected the simulated enemies through their enhanced senses. The Vrelnai calculated the optimal route to the escape pods. Lauren assessed their weapons and supplies, realized they were insufficient for a direct fight, and proposed an alternative. We don't have to fight them if we can avoid them. Can you sense their patrol patterns? She asked the Dilmari. They could. Working together, they mapped out a route that avoided most of the enemies. When they encountered an unavoidable group, Lauren used a distraction technique from Earth's military doctrine. She triggered a minor environmental failure in a different section, drawing the simulated enemies away from their path. They reached the escape pods with time to spare and 0 casualties. Jake's team faced a different scenario involving a hostage rescue. Kexvel wanted to plan a careful approach. Selva wanted to charge in directly. Jake proposed a compromise. Selva would provide a distraction with his armored charge, drawing enemy fire, while Jake and Kexvel used the confusion to reach the hostages through a secondary route. It worked perfectly. Selva absorbed simulated fire that would have killed either of the others. Jake moved fast while the enemies were focused elsewhere. Kexvel's careful analysis identified the safest extraction path. Each member contributed their strength. Team after team completed their scenarios. The success rate was significantly higher than previous cohorts had achieved. More importantly, the teams showed genuine cooperation and trust. After the assessments, Zekthar gathered everyone in the briefing hall once more. I have been an instructor here for 9 years, he said. I have trained hundreds of soldiers from dozens of species. This is the most successful cohort I have ever overseen, and I believe much of that success comes from what we have learned from our human colleagues. He gestured toward the 8 humans, who looked slightly uncomfortable with the attention. Humans taught us that different does not mean inferior, that unconventional approaches can be just as valid as established protocols. That remaining calm under pressure is not about feeling no fear, but about functioning despite it. These are lessons that will serve all of you well in coalition service. The graduation ceremony was held 1 week later. All 48 trainees stood in formation as coalition officers presented them with their new assignments. The humans were being distributed across different fleets and stations, paired with the teammates they had trained with. Jake would serve on a patrol vessel with Kexvel and Selva. Lauren joined a diplomatic security detail with her Dilmari partners. Danny was assigned to an engineering corps with mixed species teams. The others received similar postings, each one designed to make use of the bonds they had formed during training. You will be more than soldiers, the presiding officer said. You will be ambassadors for your species and for the coalition. You will show others that cooperation across species is not just possible, but necessary. After the ceremony, the graduating teams gathered in the station's common area. Conversations flowed easily now. with none of the awkwardness from those first days. Species that had been strangers 4 months ago were now friends. Brendock approached Kyle with a question that had clearly been bothering him. Will you miss Earth? Your world is dangerous, but it is your home. Kyle considered the question. Yes and no. I'll miss specific things. The smell of rain, the sound of wind through trees, the sight of a sunrise over an ocean, but Earth also prepared me for this. Humans have always been explorers. We leave our safe places to see what's beyond them. It's part of who we are. You are a strange species, Brendock said, but he was smiling. Fragile, but resilient. Weak, but determined. I am glad we will serve together. Same here, friend. Across the room, Beth was saying goodbye to Treshki, who would be serving on a different ship. Remember what I taught you about reading human body language? Beth said. It'll help you work with whatever humans you encounter in the future. And you remember what I taught you about sensory awareness, Treshki replied, her lights glowing warm colors. Your species relies heavily on sight and sound. Do not forget that other senses can provide valuable information. Eric found Zekthar near the viewing port, looking out at the stars. Instructor, I wanted to thank you. For what? Zekthar asked. For stopping that assessment. For asking why we were calm, instead of just assuming we were incompetent. You could have written us off, but you took the time to understand. That matters. Zekthar's 4 arms moved in a gesture of acknowledgement. I nearly made a grave error in judgment. Your species challenged my assumptions. That is a valuable gift, though uncomfortable at the time. Can I ask you something? Eric said. You've trained a lot of species. Do you think humans will fit in well with the coalition? The instructor was quiet for a moment. I think humans will change the coalition, just as much as the coalition changes humans. Your perspective, your approach to problems, your resilience in the face of challenges. These are not common traits in the galaxy. Some will resist what you represent, others will embrace it, but no one will be able to ignore it. Is that a good thing? Change is neither good nor bad. It simply is. But I believe the coalition will be stronger for having humans as part of it. You remind us that there are many ways to be strong. The next morning, the graduates departed for their new assignments. Jake stood in the shuttle bay with his team, ready to board the transport that would take them to their patrol vessel. Nervous? Selva asked. A little, Jake admitted. But that's normal. New assignment, new ship, new responsibilities. You are calm, though, Kexvel observed. Even with uncertainty ahead, Jake grinned. That's just being human. We've been dealing with uncertainty for our entire existence as a species. This is just another challenge. We'll figure it out as we go. As the shuttles departed Sentinel-7, carrying the mixed species teams to their new posts across the galaxy, Zekthar watched from the observation deck. He thought about that first assessment, when he had stopped the exercise to demand why the humans were so calm. Now he understood. Humans were calm because Earth had taught them to be. They faced live fire with steady nerves because their world had given them no choice but to develop those nerves. They adapted quickly because adaptation was survival on a death world. The galaxy was about to learn what one determined species from a harsh planet could accomplish when given the chance. Zekthar suspected it would be quite a lesson. In the shuttle, Beth leaned over to Danny and said quietly, "Think they'll ever really understand why we don't panic?" Danny smiled. "Probably not. But that's okay. Some things you can only understand by living them. At least now they know we're not just crazy or reckless. Just products of our environment," Beth agreed. "Just human," Danny said. And in the vast darkness of space, the shuttles carrying Earth's representatives moved toward their futures, ready to face whatever the galaxy had to offer with the same calm determination that had seen their species through millions of years of evolution on the most dangerous planet they knew. They were ready. They had always been ready. Because being ready was what humans did best.